Hello,
Hi.
everybody. Hello, Meaghan. I just want to introduce you, and for people who doesn't know you,
Mhm.
this is Natalia. My name is Natalia Bullon. I'm from Peru, and this is my channel. And in this channel, as you know, I talk about everything that makes sense to me, and I just share whatever conversation is illuminating some aspects. And in this opportunity, I will present Meaghan Duffy. Thanks, Meaghan, for joining us. And Meaghan
Sure.
is at home at the moment, and we are in New Zealand, just in case. And she's a Buddhist practitioner for some time, and I wanted to talk to her because I felt that she has a good understanding of compassion, and she will explain uh, much better what is compassion from the Buddhist perspective. So, welcome, Meaghan.
Hi, Natalia. Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Um, so I probably need to just say I can only present perspective from my kind of bias. So I definitely don't have everyone covered in terms of compassion, and I certainly would say many of the teachers in Buddhism have far more understanding than I do. But I think I can offer just some perspective, just from one person's point of view. That's and I guess I probably would start by asking you, Natalia, a little bit. Just can I just ask you what kind of inspires you to ask about compassion? Like, what interests you about it? Like, where is this coming from? This interest?
Yeah, I think that what I've heard from Buddhist teachers is that compassion is not there. Many times it's not just there. And my thought before perhaps understanding a little bit more is that compassion is like a quality that all of us we have. And because personally I don't feel like I have like a tremendous current of compassion, then I thought, oh, makes sense, because maybe there are people who has more compassion than others. And for those people like me who doesn't feel like we have an automatic response, compassionate response, what should we do to give rise to compassion? And not only giving rise because it will pass, but what can we do to maintain, even in times of challenging times like now in isolation? Even it's easy to and all these are my questions. It's easy to be compassionate towards someone who is nice, but what happens if the person is nasty? And what happens if the person tells you something that is not nice?
Mm.
What is compassion really?
I mean, I think like compassion. I don't think for some people it arises naturally, but it is something you have to practice at, and you have to. I think part of becoming compassionate is you have to become aware of your own mind and your own way of thinking and your own bias, because I think each of us, we're inherently biased towards certain points of view. Um, but I also think for a lot of us, we don't really understand what compassion is. I think we think it's like some people think it's just being nice to everyone, which is like, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's not what it is, because that's not achievable as a goal. But also, I think it's more of it. It's like for me, compassion is more like an inner kind of, what's the word? It's like you're always trying. You're always trying to be really honest about what you're seeing and how you are being with how you feel about it. Because I think that's what it ultimately comes down to, is how do you feel about what you're seeing? So, this is where uh, I feel like I should just reverse back a bit and probably talk a little bit about like my background, because I come from a family where both my parents were counselors, and so they worked in very strong, like helping kind of industries. And I would say I was taught to be a serial helper as a young person. So I was always like thinking of great advice to give people, and like, oh, if that person just saw it from this point of view, they wouldn't feel so much sadness, or you know, and I was often quite directive with people, and also probably trying to, you know, usher people down into a way of looking at something or seeing something or reading this or meeting this person, or, you know, that maybe not have been actually right for them, you know, maybe right for me, but not right for them. So I think as I've matured in life, I've kind of learned to stand back from that a little bit. So for me, like at this point, I would say my compassion does not like immediately rise and no action. It doesn't work like that. You know, for me, it's actually much more about, you know, consideration, watching what's arising in me, what am I seeing, how am I responding to what I'm seeing, and then from there kind of considering a little bit about how can we move in a way that is most beneficial. But I think actually the bottom line, the first beginning of compassion is actually just beginning to see how we and other people around us suffer. I think that's just the beginning. You just begin to actually notice it. Because I think sometimes you don't really want to see it, and it's you know, there's a whole other set of challenges that come with noticing it, like how that impacts you or makes you feel, or, you know, and then some people will spring into action because they don't want to have this feeling of seeing something they don't like. They want to change it immediately, which is not always a wise choice. I think, you know, that we need to just, you know, slow down and take our time, and sometimes actually really consider, like, I feel sometimes just doing nothing is actually far better than trying to do something immediately to fix whatever you think is wrong or whatever you feel uncomfortable about, you know. So yeah, I think that's, for me, that's the bottom line. I don't know whether you want to come in here, have a bit of a conversation about this, or
as long as we talk, then more questions come.
Okay.
So it totally makes sense to me. I think more than before that I try so many times to help, you know, in my way, and that's why it's so interesting, that view from the Buddhist tradition, where compassion is just not one thing and includes many things, and one of them is equanimity. And why it's interesting, because I thought that compassion was being nice and doing something nice, so resolving and fixing something, and as soon as possible, so the other person does not suffer. But at the same time, that's this compulsive attitude to just serve myself, you know. And I just started to see that the value of what you said, perhaps even if I don't like it, stay with that, and
stay with your own discomfort first.
Which is quite unbearable. I think that's a word, like,
because in some ways that's what equanimity is, you know. Part of equanimity or impartiality is just being present with something that's uncomfortable and not immediately seeking to move it or shift it or change it or do something with it. I mean, obviously in Buddhism we would say, don't worry, because it will change anyway, because that's the nature of things. So you you just wait and it will change. So that's a good starting point. And then while you're waiting, you're just noticing what's happening in you, you know, like, because of course all the time, you know, our own pain and our own suffering gets triggered by what we see around us, you know. So I might see someone in a particular situation and have personal experience of a similar situation and immediately feel like, because my own pain is resonating right now, I really want to just move what's happening for them. I want to change it, you know. And that's actually, it's very presumptive to do that. I think in some ways you're presuming a lot about what's happening for the other person. Often, you know, we don't really know. And likewise, like, I think, you know, this is another, it's like, this is the flip side of it. You know, when you see someone and, you know, you might feel like a little bit like, they have it so easy. Oh, I wish, you know, like you've had those little creepy feelings of almost like a kind of a jealousy, I would say, you know,
Yeah.
of, you know, that someone has something that you kind of feel a sense of desire for. I mean, again, you know, you have to watch what's happening, but remember too that you probably know nothing about the world that person inhabits, you know, and what's really going on in there and the struggles they have and how they really feel about things. And so I think all the first part of compassion, really starting to develop what I think is genuine compassion, is just stopping and watching what you're doing yourself and where your own biases arise. Because compassion, you know, I think especially when we talk about things that have like a political bent for us, or like an ideological bent for something we really believe in, something we agree with, something we spurred into action really quickly with. Genuine equanimity or genuine impartiality, you know, on the path to compassion, is you start to just loosen that immediate response of like drawing a judgment, deciding on an action, wanting to change it, move it, let's, you know, you slow that right down, and you can stay in that place probably, I reckon, for years, really, just watching what's happening. Just watching, you know, but also then your view begins to expand a little bit. Actually, when you start to do that, you begin to become a little bit more open-minded. And really, I think in Buddhism, you know, what we see in the Dalai Lama, that glowing warmth and that breadth that we think is just kindness, it is, but it's underpinned by immense open-mindedness. But also, like, he's seeing what he's seeing, but he's not leaping to judgments about it. Like, I feel like that's what creates that kind of warmth that we see in him. I mean, because he's a very ultimate example of probably of compassion, but, you know, it's that open, warm presence and unafraid, unflinching, you know, just seeing what's there. So, like, to me, like, that's compassion. That's the bottom line, you know.
And here perhaps comes the pinnacle point for Buddhists, how compassion is related to the practice of meditation. So why we practice meditation then?
Of course, you practice meditation to become aware, to analyze what your mind is doing. You're watching as, like, all the data comes in through all your senses and the way it's processed. Because we do so much of that kind of processing completely automatically and unconsciously. Totally. So in Buddhism, you know, they talk about the aggregates or the skandhas. Like, it's the study of that, like breaking it down into all its constituent parts so that you begin to see. And because all of that, just in the Buddhist view, just covers our true nature. Like, so our true nature is constantly obscured by this external process of receiving data and then processing it in a very particular way. So that's a very in a nutshell kind of way, but yeah.
So compassion can be strengthened by the practice of meditation, which in a sense, can we say that creates a space?
I don't think you could. I don't think you will ever be compassionate without having some kind of meditation or reflective practice. Like, I have to say, it's not just like maybe you could, it helps. No, I would say it is like totally essential, actually. You know, I would just say, like, and you know, there's like all different kinds of ways to practice meditation. But, you know, in the Zen tradition, I remember hearing a Zen teacher once talk about how their practice is designed around bringing every particle of your being present now, in this moment, now, just present now, bringing everything, because so much of our mind is caught up in all these other processes all the time. So, you know, we're half of our mind's thinking about something that happened last week, and then another part of us is caught up in something that happened when we were 5, and then, you know, then we're thinking about the future, and do you know what I mean? And like what we're going to have for lunch, you know, there's so much happening all the time. So I think some kind of meditation practice, some kind of ability to even just become aware of how much is going on, even just become aware of that, is such an amazing beginning. And not worry about that too much. Just know that this is our nature, to be always thinking. You know, it's not our deeper nature, but it's like in this human, whatever we are here, you know, we are constantly producing mental activity. Anyway, sorry, I don't know whether that's getting off topic a little bit, but
no.
But I think, yeah.
Sorry, it makes completely sense, because one of the 2 questions I have was how compassion is related to meditation, and
okay,
and yeah. So what I mean, there are many places and many I think many things said about compassion, and so what I feel, that feeling of wanting to alleviate suffering from others, what's that?
I mean, I think that's the beginning of compassion. It is the feeling of wanting to alleviate suffering. However, this is where I caution people, don't leap into action. You need to stop. You need to train a little bit. So in a Buddhist tradition, you do a lot of training on the cushion first. And they say, don't even think about trying to take it out into the world until you've really done this training on the cushion. And the training is about, you need to become aware of your biases. Like when we talk about love and kindness, we have such, where it's such a complex thing for us, you know, and it depends on the culture you were raised in, what the kind of this social kind of structures of that culture are, like how we express kindness, what we think kindness is. I mean, you know, some of the teachers that I've heard teach on compassion or read about teaching on compassion, they speak about, you know, we think, you know, taking someone's side in an argument, or do you know what I mean? Like these kinds of things we do because we think we're supporting someone or helping them, and that this is compassion. Or that, you know, I remember Traleg Rinpoche saying, you know, this example of, you know, you sit with a glass of wine with your friend and you talk about how awful her ex-husband is with her, you know, like, you know, and we think this is compassion, but that's not, you know, really, in the Buddhist view, that's not compassion. That's something else. I don't really know what we would call that. But, you know, like maybe from the Buddhist point of view, maybe what you would begin to consider is, if this ex-husband did some really yucky things, then maybe you would start to think about, I wonder what's going on in him that generates that kind of chaos in his life. You know, what's going on for this ex-husband, you know? And so you can still hear your friend complain about his bad behavior, but you might not necessarily just join the bandwagon. You know, it's that pausing before you leap in to actually consider, you know, what's really going on here. And like we see this all the time. You know, we live in a world, you see people doing crazy stuff, chaos, creating chaos. Like there's some great examples in politics in the world at the moment. I'm not even going to name them, but, you know, creating chaos through their words and actions. But, you know, we have to stop and look at, you know, what's going on in a person that they move in the world in that way. You know, they don't have any skill in creating any kind of harmony in themselves or anyone around them. You know, like I just think, wow, that's full on, you know, what a way to live. You know, really, what happens when they go to bed at night? Like, you know, how do they feel in their body as they're moving in the world, you know? So I think, like, that's what I mean, again, just stopping and just considering all the time. Because the thing about love is, like, love is really for us more about attachment, about what we like and clinging to that, and we call that love. But you know, and look, you know, that's part of the dynamic that we experience as love. But we know that can change. You know, love can become anger and hate very quickly too if things don't turn out the way you want them to or expect them to. Or so because of that changeability, you know, I think we need to be considered. Sorry.
And
You know,
just to finalize our talk, because it was supposed to be a short one.
okay, great. Yeah.
I was thinking, okay, it has to do with restraint, right? And how do you practice restraint?
Well, I don't know. I mean, how else do I say it? How do I say it? I think the first part of the practice is just the noticing. Just the noticing. Even if you can't stop yourself from responding, acting, just even noticing that little uncomfortable feeling that arises when your friend talks about, you know, like, you know, talks to you about something someone said to her that hurt them, or, you know, like just noticing the uncomfortableness of that. Or, like, I think the noticing is the beginning of the restraining. I don't think you can leap into restraining, actually. It's just first, it's the noticing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just the noticing. And then you practice with the noticing for a while first. And you forgive yourself if you know, doing stuff left, right, and center. You don't worry about it too much. And you have faith that in time, because it will naturally loosen. Once you start to notice, your urge to act might slow down a little bit. It might slow down.
Yeah. That's great, Meaghan. Well, I only look. We talked for over half an hour, very quickly. So I just have to thank you for making a space in your time and be very kind to share whatever experience you had on this topic. And obviously, it's the first beneficiary is me, because I'm asking from my personal experience. But I hope, hopefully, for whoever is out there, maybe they are in the same part of the practice. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I mean, I can always talk, but you know, that's ultimately the point, isn't it? That maybe somewhere it will help. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, look, good luck with your channel, Natalia. We wish you well.
Okay. Thank you so much.